Readings of Almighty God's words on the pursuit of the truth. How to pursue the truth. 24. Last time, we fellowshipped on the content of letting go of the barriers between oneself and God and one's hostility toward God, which falls under the larger topic of letting go in how to pursue the truth. This content involves notions and imaginings about the incarnate God. What aspects did we fellowship on?
Last time, God mainly fellowshipped on and exposed some of our notions and imaginings about the incarnate God. And God also fellowshipped on two principles of practice for us. One was to not compare the incarnate God with the God in heaven, and the other was to not put the incarnate God on a par with corrupt humankind.
To resolve notions and imaginings about the incarnate God, what people must practice are these two principles mentioned in the last fellowship. What was the first one?
To not compare the incarnate God with the God in heaven.
And what was the second one?
To not put the incarnate God on a par with corrupt humankind.
Primarily, it was these two. Last time, I fellowshipped on the first principle, to not compare the incarnate God with the God in heaven, and briefly introduced topics concerning the life of God incarnate that people can see and that they do not yet understand. Today, I will continue fellowshipping on the topic concerning God incarnate. The more I fellowship, the more people will understand, and the more thorough their understanding will be. The more I fellowship on the significance of the normal humanity or the humbleness and hiddenness of God incarnate, the more people will understand God incarnate, and the more practical their understanding of Him will be. They will be able to understand more about the practical side of God incarnate, or the aspects of Him that people can see and come into contact with, and their knowledge will be more accurate and practical. In this way, people will let go of some of their notions and imaginings about the God in heaven that are not in line with reality. The more people let go of their notions and imaginings about the God in heaven, and the more they know and apprehend the practicality and normality of the incarnate God, the more normal the relationship between people and God will become. One point about not comparing the incarnate God with the God in heaven is that you must have an understanding of the practicality and normality of the incarnate God. The more you understand the practicality and normality of God incarnate, the more you will understand the God in heaven, and you will not measure the God in heaven with your notions and imaginings. Of course, from an objective standpoint, something else will happen as well. You will have the correct attitude toward God. You will have an objective view of the various manifestations revealed by the incarnate God in His humanity, and you will also know the God in heaven more accurately and practically. This prevents you from always having notions and imaginings about God incarnate that are not in line with reality. And it also prevents you from always comparing the incarnate God with the God in heaven. When discussing God's incarnate flesh, that is, Christ, there is a certain topic that is often brought up: the normality and practicality and the humbleness and hiddenness of God incarnate. People often speak of His normality and practicality, and they also often speak of His humbleness and hiddenness. However, when it comes to the practical issues involved here, it can be said that all people lack clarity. Just what is God's normality and practicality? What is His humbleness and hiddenness? That is, when it comes to just what the incarnate God's normality, practicality, humbleness, and hiddenness are in people's hearts, as well as how to understand and know these things. People aren't clear on the truth or the essence in this regard, and merely preach about them as if they were a kind of theory or spiritual terminology. Thus, there is a great need for us to fellowship on this topic of the normality and practicality, and the humbleness and hiddenness of God incarnate in a detailed and systematic way. Through such fellowship, people will become clear on what constitutes the living out of the normality and practicality of the incarnate God, this Son of Man who possesses a special identity. What can you apprehend of the normality and practicality of the incarnate God in terms of your literal comprehension, or as far as your notions and imaginings go? Over these years of coming into contact, interacting, or talking with the incarnate God, what exactly have you felt and come to know regarding the normality and practicality of the incarnate God? Most of the topics fellowshipped on previously were about the problems of corrupt humankind. That is, we fellowshipped on the various problems you have, which involve corrupt dispositions, serving God, and performing duties, as well as humanity, caliber, people's notions and imaginings, and attitudes and viewpoints toward God. We talked about all of these. I've preached the truth and given sermons for so many years, and it's all been about your problems. This time, we're finally not talking about your problems, but rather about some things involving God incarnate, allowing us to look at things from a different angle. Don't you find this topic quite relaxing, quite free of any burden, and not as awkward? Then, what are the things you can see, appreciate, or understand when it comes to the normality and practicality, or the humbleness and hiddenness of God incarnate? You can speak of theories or facts. Anything is fine. You aren't able to give a response. In that case, do you usually have no thoughts in your minds about God's incarnate flesh? No knowledge at all? And no feelings whatsoever? You must have some, right? Sometimes it could be a fleeting thought. Sometimes it might be something you think about for a bit. And sometimes it could be some deep impressions you have in your hearts. If it's a fleeting thought, you might not remember it. Or sometimes a certain thought or viewpoint pops up in your subconscious, and you might not necessarily remember that either. But sometimes you have a certain impression of God incarnate, and this impression in turn causes you to develop a view. This impression will exist in your mind for a long time. You will definitely be able to remember it. Your mind shouldn't be blank, right? So, talk about your understanding of the normality and practicality, or the humbleness and hiddenness of God incarnate.
My understanding of the normality and practicality of God incarnate is that He also has the normal needs of the flesh. For example, when Christ speaks for a long time, He'll get thirsty and need to drink water. When He fellowships with us in gatherings for 3 or 4 hours, He'll also get tired and need to rest. When He walks for a long time, He'll need to take breaks too. That is, from the outside, Christ is the same as a normal person, and he also has the full range of emotions of normal humanity. He feels happy when he hears joyful things, and feels sad when he hears distressing things. These are also manifestations of the normality and practicality of God incarnate.
You've stated some facts. These are things you have seen, and also things you can come into contact with and feel. Anything else?
I'll add a point. I heard before that when you are going to direct some professional work, you also have to learn and understand some specialized knowledge.
Is this something you've all heard? That when I direct some professional work, I also have to go and learn about it in a practical manner, and understand and master some relevant professional knowledge? Is this the information most people have received? Is this what you all think? The record needs to be set straight. I really do not have the energy to look up resources or learn any kind of professional knowledge. It's just that I've seen some movies and therefore have a bit of an impression about how they should generally be. On top of that, based on some relevant professional knowledge provided by the brothers and sisters, I then figure out and derive the relevant principles and provide some direction for the professional work. The essential point here is grasping the principles and directing them based on the principles. The difficulties of those doing the work are, in one respect, that their professional knowledge is not comprehensive, and in another respect, that they do not grasp the truth principles, coupled with their poor caliber. As such, with me giving them some measure of guidance on the basis of understanding the principles, the results are better than if they did it themselves. I do this based on the principle of propagating God's words, testifying to God, not bringing shame upon God, and enabling people to learn more about God's work and understand more of the truth. And this has yielded certain results. In terms of actual professional skills, I have practically none. I don't have that specialized knowledge to begin with, nor have I ever specifically tried to learn about it, as you said. No matter what kind of professional work I guide, I have never tried to learn about it, nor have I looked up educational materials, resources, or relevant professional knowledge. At most, the brothers and sisters find some relevant educational materials or samples and pass them on to me to look at, and from these I derive some relevant principles and some ways of working for that profession, and direct their work based on these. Regarding this aspect, the normality and practicality of God incarnate, people have seen some of the normality and practicality exhibited by the instincts of His flesh. This includes human instincts, as well as some revelations and limitations of the various innate conditions of the flesh. This is normality and practicality in the true sense of these terms. Whether it's what He outwardly reveals, or His inner thoughts and views, or inner principles of self-conduct of His humanity. In short, the simplest and most basic understanding of the normality and practicality of God incarnate is that He is not extraordinary, transcendent, or unconventional. That is, from the outward appearance of God incarnate, you cannot see any special manifestations that differ from those of ordinary people. If He does not speak or do anything, just looking at His facial features, His physical form, and His person as a whole, You cannot see anything unusual. He is not extraordinary, transcendent, or unconventional. He is just an ordinary person. To put it accurately or objectively, if this person is in a crowd and does not speak, do work, or express the truth, you cannot tell how this person is different from anyone else. For example, if I am sitting among you and a stranger comes in, they'd see that I appear just like you. I do not sit in the seat of honor, nor do I stand out. I have an ordinary appearance. I am not extraordinary, not towering, and I don't seem like some kind of great figure. I am just an ordinary person. So they would not be able to tell who God incarnate is. If I lived together with a group of people, you would not be able to see anything different about me then either. You only know that this incarnate God is female, but you simply wouldn't be able to tell who God incarnate is with the naked eye, unless you listened to my sermons a lot, in which case you might be able to tell by my voice. If someone's voice is similar to mine, some people might even make a mistake and assume she was the incarnate God. Do such things happen? This has certainly happened. Some individuals look transcendent and outstanding, being especially possessed of aura and style, and appearing particularly noble, like someone with status and a certain standing. Some foolish brothers and sisters, or people who particularly want to meet the incarnate God, will mistakenly think such a person is the incarnate God, and even bow down and kneel to her. The one being bowed to feels quite delighted inside and even tacitly accepts it. When she is about to leave, those foolish people who bowed and kneeled even shed tears and are reluctant to part with her. They pull on her clothes and won't let her go, saying, "When will you come again? We'll miss you." They even say with particular excitement, "I have finally met the incarnate God. I have no regrets in this life. Even if I die, my life will have been worthwhile." The one being bowed to doesn't clarify the situation at all. Have you heard of such things? This kind of thing wouldn't possibly happen overseas. Why did it happen in mainland China? Because God incarnate appeared and worked in China. He definitely has the image of a Chinese person. So this kind of thing happened in mainland China. We will not go into whether the two parties involved in this matter are right or wrong. As for this issue itself, no matter how people understand the normality and practicality of God incarnate, going by their notions, people believe that God incarnate should have a towering image, a noble appearance, and even more so, a noble identity. He should also have a unique appearance and manner of speaking, making everyone who looks at him feel that he is like God, that he is God, without the slightest doubt. If he looks unremarkable to people, and they cannot see the aura of God or the image of God in him, then it is impossible for him to be God. People believe that God incarnate is definitely particularly towering, noble, and possessed of aura, looking especially like someone with a royal identity. He should stand tall when he walks. His eyes should be bright and piercing, and his gaze should be particularly sharp. He should be able to instantly know what anyone is thinking just by looking at them, and he should be able to tell at a glance who harbors hostility or bad thoughts. These thoughts that people have reflect a certain phenomenon. People have such a multitude of imaginings about the incarnate God. But in fact, the incarnate God is not the same as the God of people's notions and imaginings. There is a difference. The incarnate God's outward appearance is particularly ordinary. He is not towering at all, not transcendent at all, and not supernatural at all. It can even be said that there isn't anything special about him. From the outside, he is almost no different from all created humans. That is, he is almost exactly the same as the humans created by God in terms of the various functions they possess, as well as the instincts, normal thinking, and various abilities of humans. These are the outward things that people can directly see with the naked eye and come into contact with, and that people can apprehend and understand. These outward things are easy for people to see and understand, so they will not be the focus of our fellowship. The normality and practicality of God incarnate and his humbleness and hiddenness are the focus of our fellowship. As for what people should understand about God incarnate, whether it's his normality and practicality or his humbleness and hiddenness, it consists of thoughts or ways of knowing that people simply do not have in their hearts. These thoughts do not even exist within their notions and imaginings. This involves how God incarnate lives among people, how he lives in the real-life environment of humankind, how he conducts his life, and how he speaks and works among people. This involves issues regarding the essence of God incarnate, and these issues are worth fellowshipping on. These aspects are also things that people cannot see or that are very difficult for people to understand. And of course, they are also things that do not exist within people's knowledge or within their notions and imaginings about God incarnate. That is, people's knowledge, understanding, and imaginings about God incarnate are basically disconnected from the reality of the life and existence of God incarnate. As a result, much of people's knowledge regarding the essence of God incarnate is impractical and unobjective, and even consists of some notions and imaginings that do not accord with reality. The incarnate God lives among people and in this material world. His normality and practicality are reflected in his life, as well as in the process of his existence. In his life and the process of his existence, in one respect, what is involved is the life of this flesh, and in another respect, what is involved is the ministry performed by God incarnate. Let's look from these two aspects at how the normality and practicality lived out and possessed by God incarnate differ from people's notions and imaginings. What parts of this normality and practicality people cannot understand or dismiss after seeing them, but are actually manifestations of the normality and practicality possessed by God's incarnate flesh. Since this involves the life and existence of God incarnate, this entails many real issues, as well as many thoughts and views regarding these real issues. These thoughts and views are in fact practically and objectively revealed and lived out in the life of God incarnate and the ministry he performs. However, Because people harbor too many notions and imaginings, whether about the God in heaven or the God on earth, and because these are all hollow and not in line with reality, most people dismiss the normality and practicality and the humbleness and hiddenness that people can see manifested by God incarnate, this special identity of God. What most people focus on are signs and wonders, mysteries, supernatural abilities, and things that are profound, grand, or relatively transcendent and bizarre, and so on. Yet people dismiss the truly objective, practical, and real things lived out and revealed by God Himself. No matter how many years God's incarnate flesh lives among humankind, because people dismiss these things, their knowledge of God always remains stuck on their hollow and nebulous imaginings. As a result, people's knowledge of God is always so unobjective and impractical. Today, through fellowshipping on this topic, let us come to know the normality and practicality reflected in the life of God incarnate and the ministry He performs. Whether it be the life of God incarnate or the ministry He performs, both aspects involve the living out of His normality and practicality. This involves the viewpoints of God incarnate, this Son of Man who possesses a special identity toward all kinds of people, events, and things, and His principles and methods for handling all kinds of matters. You have heard in the fellowships over the years about the principles and methods by which the incarnate God treats and handles all kinds of matters, and you now know about these things. These things, which seem quite lofty and grand in your minds, all involve the truth. In one respect, they represent the intentions of the God in heaven. They represent what the God who possesses God's identity and essence requires of people and what He teaches them. In another respect, it is undeniable that they also represent the principles, methods, and thoughts and views of God incarnate, this Son of Man, in how He views or handles all kinds of matters. I have already fellowshipped with you for a long time on this massive amount of content involving the truth principles. There are many topics, and they are quite lengthy. This content is sufficient to represent the incarnate God's, the Son of Man's, thoughts and views, attitudes, and principles for handling things in all kinds of matters. We will not talk about this aspect today.